Welcome to the Wild Bradbury Podcast. This week, you're actually going to get 2 brief episodes because there's 2 very important subjects I want to touch on this week. One, I want to do a brief follow-up about spaces and how my space worked for me and what our first holiday hosting people and in our new, very small for us home looked like. We, I'm fighting a cold. I'm going to try really hard not to do that in your ear, but so our space, I feel like a lot of times, especially around the Christmas holiday, space becomes this ever-present issue, right? For many, many reasons. But the main reason, if you have children, is that they have tons of stuff and then they acquire lots of stuff. And then there's nowhere to put that stuff. And this is a constant problem for mothers, primarily because we're the ones that sort and organize and put things away for the most part. But let me tell you about how we staged our space this year. This is probably the smallest home that we've lived in as a family of 5 anyway. We also have Eddie, our woofmate, our borrowed dog, for another week. And our space is limited. I mean, it really much is. So there was some concern because my dad and my brother were coming to visit this holiday season, excuse me, and we were also hosting another 5-person family of mostly adults, grown children, for Christmas Eve dinner, Christmas Day night dinner. It felt like Christmas Eve because it was late, but it was very interesting. I was concerned. I'm not going to lie. I was concerned about the layout of the food and the tables, the amount of toys, because the Christmas chaos happened that morning. And, kids, they tear into it and then they want to play with all of it at the exact same time. And what happens is it's strewn from one side of the house to the other. And if your house is small, then it essentially covers the entire thing. And that is an issue if you are trying to simultaneously cook a very large meal and organize a house for people that you do not see very often or have never met, which was our case. We were hosting people who we really didn't know very well. So it makes for very interesting spatial awareness on my part, because here's some things that I did. And these are my tips for you for next year or for Easter, if you are already preparing for family to come into town. One of the things that happens that I make a point to do is I make most of my decor up off of the floor, okay? And I will post pictures associated with this particular podcast to the blog, which those of you that have recently started following the blog, thank you so much. There's been such a huge influx of people following the blog. I need to send you all over to YouTube in the hopes that maybe it will pay for my travel someday. But thank you so much for reading it. I feel like so many people only watch videos or only do Facebook, or if it's not on Twitter, then you've got nothing sort of ideals right now. And Twitter's not a space I'm going to probably ever. So it means a lot that people are reading, and it's really nice and reassuring to hear. And so many of you spent your holiday reading my blog and commenting, and I so appreciate that. That's just amazing. It was totally unexpected. It was just like a little Christmas miracle over here. But space. I will post pictures of our space, of how our decor looks. One thing I get all the time is having a real tree with very young people, real ornaments that we care or don't care for with young people, with someone else's dog in our home this year. A dog that collects sticks nonetheless, and what that looks like. But one thing I did was I did garland over all of our valances. So you get the atmosphere of heavily decorated, the atmosphere of greenery, the atmosphere of Yule, and the ambiance of cozy and peace without the clutter. So it's not around your feet, you're not tripping over it, you're not constantly picking up or readjusting the nativity. This decor is up, it's up high. I also drape things. in areas the kids don't need to get to. I also drape things in areas where I don't want the kids to get to, right? If it's somewhere that I've had to correct them numerous times on whether or not they should be messing with it, I'm going to make it even more complicated for them to mess with it. And I'll show you examples of that in photos. But it was very important for me this year that our small space did not feel claustrophobic. Another way that I did that was as Santa mom, as mothers, we carry a lot of the magic of Christmas with us, right? We do most of the shopping. And with that being said, we really do have control over what we bring into our spaces. Now, I'm just as guilty as everybody else that you want your child to get everything on their list sort of ideal. We don't want anybody disappointed. But gratefulness is learned too. And unfortunately, they can't have everything. But one thing I did do is I didn't bring anything into our home from Santa that I didn't already have a home for in mind within our house, within our walls. So we didn't bring in anything humongous that I have to find an empty wall space for. We didn't bring anything in that needed its own drawer. We didn't bring anything in that needed to be hung up on the wall because that space is pretty filled around here. We didn't bring anything in that needs to be set up 24/7, and that's a royal pain in the rear end to set up or take down. We didn't bring anything in that has tons of tiny pieces. You do have a lot of control. And though it may not seem like it, you really, really do. And, if that play kitchen doesn't fit in your life, then the play kitchen doesn't fit in your life. And if an outdoor play kitchen would suit your child better, then you should build one out of pallets and make a mud kitchen and do things that way, rather than have a play kitchen sitting in the middle of your living room to drive you insane and ruin the ambiance of your space for you forevermore. So you need to think about your mental health and the consequences of having to live around clutter and things that don't bring you joy. I understand it might bring your children joy. I do get that. And as a mom, I spend a lot of time making little bitty sacrifices for everybody else. And I understand that there's some things you just power through because it makes your child happy or your spouse happy or what have you. But here's the thing. I'm the one that cleans it for the most part. And I'm the one that has to clean up around it. And I'm the one that has to make the space enjoyable. And what my children are starting to realize now as they get a little bit older, and hopefully yours are already realizing this or will soon as well, the empty space feels pretty good. Every time we move, our children's favorite day is the day that we're in the house when it's empty, which I always find so interesting because they will complain nonstop about not having their toys, about their things being in storage, about being bored or what have you. But when the house is empty on moving day, they love the amount of space that gives them. So my goal is always to find a way to incorporate both feelings of joy, which seems like a double-edged sword, and it is to some extent. On one hand, we want some things, okay? There are things, material things that bring us joy, like immense amounts of craft supplies and access to empty toilet paper rolls to build things and Legos. Oh, the Legos. Those things bring my children a great amount of joy. And so I do keep them. But I can't keep anything that doesn't have a home within our home. So all of those craft supplies have their own shelving unit closet area where anybody walking through my front door would have no idea that chaos was behind the said door. And that's how we treat everything in our house. And now I'm not telling you to coach your children into shoving everything they own into their closet and trying to squeeze the door shut or having the bottom of their beds overflowing with belongings. But what I am saying is that there's a time and a place for each individual thing, and those things do bring joy in their moments, and it's okay to indulge in those things, but you have to be able to have a home for them later. And that home might be that play kitchen is sitting out for the next 18 months, and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel when that time is up because your child will outgrow it, and you're content with that, and that's okay. But you have to be the one to clean around it. So, it is a double-edged sword in that regard. Now, our small home handled Christmas dinner really well. I was pretty surprised. I wasn't really sure how we were going to manage it, and 11 people felt like a lot in our little bitty house. But I really love hosting, and I really want to find a method that works really smoothly within our home for hosting people and serving great amounts of food and seating people. So one thing we did was we had our main dining room table set up like it always is in front of my peacock window, and then we put on a smaller plastic table to the end of it and covered them both in the same color tablecloth to make them look like an extension of each other. Now, had the third family of 6 shown up, we would have had to have made a very large L with a third plastic table extending into the living room. And I would have had to turn part of my buffet area, which is a built-in desk area in my kitchen, into a child seating area with military camp stools. But we didn't have to do that. So because I was exempt from that maneuvering, we were able to use that built-in area as the plate and silverware napkin threshold to the food corner. And so that's where our line started to get food. Now, I am a Instagram table photo taker, okay? I love a beautifully staged table. I love a well-displayed meal. That's something I have to let go of when I host large amounts of people, because the only way it really works with enough room for people to eat at the table is if I form a buffet style method through the kitchen. So I start with main course first. So we had our plates, silverware, meats, which we had 2, prime rib and ham, and then proceeded to the right of the stove with the side dishes and the rolls and et cetera, and last but not least, the salad. So that way, if people wanted to take their plate to the table and circle back around and go to the very end of the line for the salad to fill a salad bowl, it wasn't in the middle of the rest of the display. This worked pretty well. Okay, and then in front of my coffee pot to the right of the sink, I had desserts. This is how I will set it up for the next 3 years for every holiday that we're hosting other people, because it worked quite flawlessly. The challenge came in when we had to do something with all the dirty dishes, but all the food was still out. That became a little complicated, but only because my sink was full from cooking all day. So this is, I can't preach the staging of your spaces enough, because what I find post-holiday is really, really strung out caregivers, moms that are so over Christmas, so over the cooking, so over the gift wrapping, so over the presents, so over the noises, that they totally lack the meaning of the season. They totally lack the compassion needed to enter the new year. They're not in a healthy state of mind, physically or mentally, to start making resolutions and goals and start thinking about them as of January 1, when they get a break from the holiday. And they go into taking decor down with so much remorse of all the things they want to try again next year. They want to start planning next year already because so many things went horribly wrong. And that is not how I want to see you enter the new year. Though I spent a ton of time cooking this season, which, depending upon the day, I really, really enjoy. Otherwise, it was very stress-free. My Christmas lists were done. Mom Santa doesn't wrap anything. I wrapped things from family. And we orchestrate that with opening gifts from each other and family on Christmas Eve, and then Santa is Christmas morning. And that helps us split up the chaos, split up the trash bags, split up the amount of clutter. Everything from Christmas Eve gets put away Christmas Eve. So it leaves room for the chaos of Christmas morning. Christmas morning happens, you pick what you want to play with, and everything else gets put away. Because mom didn't purchase anything that doesn't have a home within her home. Okay? I really, really want to see you write that down as a little 2020 Christmas goal for yourself as you enter the new year, because it's brutal. Christmas can be really, really brutal in that regard, and having to just stare at packed closets knowing that there's nowhere for this new stuff to go. It's also important that you make a significant amount of space in your life if there's something your child really wants and the only thing holding you back from getting it is space. Then there's bound to be a few things that could leave your house before Christmas to make that happen. And unfortunately, as moms and as care providers and dads too, it's hard to not be sentimental about material things that meant a lot to our children in a past life, so to speak, in years past. I mean, I am one of those people. I have one stuffed animal from my childhood that's very important to me. I don't know why. I don't know why he's important to me now. Actually, I didn't know where he was until the other day. But your kids probably don't want you to hang on to it. They might. And if you have the space, if you have that lovely attic space or that basement corner that can be dedicated towards things that your children may or may not carry on into their own families someday, then that's wonderful. We move too often for that. We can't do that. Excuse me. So unfortunately for my kids, if that's something that they are looking for, they're not going to get that from me. But only because the space doesn't allow, and their children will want new things. I mean, I can't imagine what the market will look like 20 or 30 years from now when my children start having children, if they so choose. But it's very important that your space and your holiday isn't ruined because of the gifts that you subsequently ordered or purchased, or the gifts that someone else gave. You owe nobody an obligation to hang on to their things. Your home's not a storage unit for someone else's joy. So I'm going to leave you with that because that's pretty heavy. A lot of us carry the makeup of our family with us. And it takes a lot of personal decoding to discover what is necessary for us and for our home and the lifestyle we want to lead. And you don't owe anybody your space. So until next time, thank you for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you soon.